My mother crashed my police academy graduation to have me arrested. She never expected what happened next. Officers, arrest that woman. She's been stalking and harassing me for months. I froze mid-step, my new badge still gleaming in my hand. The auditorium fell silent. Every head turned toward the back where a woman's shrill voice cut through the ceremony like a knife. Ma'am, this is my graduation ceremony. What are you talking about? Don't play innocent with me, Arya. You know exactly what you've done. My mother. Of course it was my mother. Mom, you need to calm down. You're embarrassing yourself. I have evidence. Phone records, emails, everything. She's been terrorizing me. Hi, my name is Arya Chun. Today, I'm going to tell you about the day my mother crashed my police academy graduation to have me arrested. But before I continue, please like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories like this. The day I graduated from the Los Angeles Police Academy should have been the proudest moment of my life. After 18 months of grueling training, physical conditioning that left me sore for weeks, and academic courses that challenged everything I thought I knew about law enforcement, I'd finally achieved my dream. The auditorium at the Pasadena Convention Center was packed with nearly 200 family members and friends. My classmates' loved ones filled every seat, cameras ready, pride radiating from their faces. My mother, Dorothy, wasn't supposed to be there. We hadn't spoken in over 2 years, not since I'd finally cut contact after 3 decades of manipulation, emotional abuse, and relentless attempts to control every single aspect of my life. Growing up with Dorothy had been a masterclass in psychological warfare. Nothing I did was ever good enough. When I brought home straight A's, she'd ask why I hadn't gotten extra credit. When I made the varsity soccer team, she'd complain that I wasn't starting lineup. When I got accepted to UCLA, she'd criticized my choice to study criminal justice. You're not smart enough for law enforcement, she told me flatly when I announced my plans. You should do something more realistic, like dental hygiene or administrative work. But the constant criticism paled in comparison to her obsessive need to control me. Dorothy would read my journal, intercept my packages, and call my professors to check on my progress. She'd appear unannounced at my apartment, my bartending jobs, even on dates. I'm just protecting your best interests, she'd say whenever I complained about her interference. When I graduated from UCLA and announced my intention to apply to the police academy, Dorothy's control tactics went nuclear. She called the academy admissions office, claiming I had psychiatric issues that would make me dangerous with a firearm. She contacted my references and told them I was mentally unstable and prone to violence. You're making a catastrophic mistake, she told me over and over. Police work is dangerous and thankless. You'll never survive it. I was accepted despite her sabotage, but Dorothy's interference continued throughout my training. She called my instructors claiming I was abusing prescription medications. She showed up at the academy demanding meetings with the director about my concerning behavior. She even filed false reports with neighboring police departments, claiming I was impersonating an officer when I wore my training uniform off-duty. Each time, I had to explain to my supervisors that my mother was mentally unstable. Has your mother ever been diagnosed with any psychological conditions? Asked Dr. Helen Wright, the academy psychologist, during one of our mandatory sessions. She refuses to get help, I explained, my voice tight with frustration. But she's always been controlling and paranoid. She sees conspiracies everywhere and thinks everyone's plotting against her, or against me. This level of interference in an adult child's life is deeply concerning, Dr. Wright said, making notes. You may need to consider legal action to establish boundaries. That conversation was what finally pushed me to cut all contact. I changed my phone number, moved to a new apartment in Silver Lake without giving her the address, and blocked her on every social media platform I had. I informed the academy administration about the situation and asked them to flag any future contact from her as harassment. For 18 months, I heard nothing from Dorothy. I let myself believe she'd finally accepted that I was a 28-year-old woman capable of making my own decisions. My training progressed beautifully. I excelled in defensive tactics and was selected for specialized training in crisis intervention. My boyfriend, Marcus Johnson, was incredibly supportive throughout the academy process. He'd also survived a difficult family situation and understood the importance of setting firm boundaries with toxic relatives. You've worked so hard for this, Marcus told me the night before graduation, holding my hands across the dinner table at our favorite steakhouse in West Hollywood. Don't let anyone steal this moment from you. My best friend from the academy, Kennedy Barnes, had become the sister I'd never had. Her family had essentially adopted me, inviting me to Sunday dinners and holiday celebrations. Her parents, Christine and David, planned to attend the graduation ceremony to cheer for both of us. I can't wait for you to officially meet my parents as Officer Chun, Kennedy said excitedly as we prepared our dress uniforms the night before. They're so proud of you. Mom's already crying, and the ceremony hasn't even started. The graduation ceremony was held at the downtown convention center, with the mayor, Police Chief Anderson, and several city council members in attendance. As we lined up backstage in our crisp dress uniforms, I felt a surge of pride and accomplishment I'd never experienced before. Despite all of Dorothy's attempts to sabotage my career, I was minutes away from becoming a sworn police officer. The ceremony began with the national anthem and the presentation of colors by the Academy Honor Guard. One by one, my classmates were called forward to receive their badges and certificates. The auditorium erupted with applause, cheers, and camera flashes capturing these milestone moments. When Chief Anderson called my name, I walked across that stage with my head held high. He handed me my badge and shook my hand firmly. "Congratulations, Officer Chun," he said with a warm smile. "Los Angeles is fortunate to have you." I was walking back to my seat, my heart soaring, when I heard the shouting from the back of the auditorium. "Officers, arrest that woman. She's been stalking and harassing me for months." And just like that, my proudest moment became my worst nightmare. I turned to see Dorothy pushing through the crowd, pointing directly at me with a trembling finger. She looked disheveled, her hair uncombed, her cardigan wrinkled, waving a manila folder stuffed with papers. "Ma'am, this is my graduation ceremony. What are you talking about?" "Don't play innocent with me, Arya. You know exactly what you've done." The entire auditorium went dead silent, my classmates, their families, and the police officials. Everyone was staring at this bizarre interruption. "Mom, you need to calm down. You're embarrassing yourself." "I have evidence." She was nearly hysterical now. "Phone records, emails, everything. She's been terrorizing me." Chief Anderson stepped forward, along with several officers who'd been providing security for the event. The ceremony ground to a complete halt as everyone watched this surreal confrontation unfold. Dorothy began pulling papers from her folder, scattering them across the polished floor as she ranted about a harassment campaign that existed nowhere but in her mind. "She calls me at all hours of the night," Dorothy claimed, her voice breaking. "She sends threatening emails from fake accounts. She's been driving past my house, following me to work, trying to destroy my life." "Ma'am, I need you to calm down," Chief Anderson said firmly. "This is a formal ceremony, and you're disrupting it. I'm not leaving until you arrest her." Dorothy screamed. "She's dangerous. She shouldn't be allowed to carry a badge." Captain Gloria Hayes, a veteran detective who'd been observing from the audience, approached Dorothy with professional composure. "Ma'am, I'm Captain Hayes. Can you tell me your name and show me some identification?" "I'm Dorothy Chun," she said, fumbling through her purse with shaking hands. "And that's my daughter who's been stalking and harassing me for 2 years." "Ma'am, can you show me evidence of this alleged harassment?" Captain Hayes asked calmly. Dorothy began spreading papers across the floor, printouts of emails, phone records, and what appeared to be surveillance photographs. But as Captain Hayes examined them, her expression shifted from concern to confusion. The emails were from marketing companies and spam accounts, not from me. The phone records showed calls from telemarketers and wrong numbers, certainly not harassment calls. The surveillance photos were random pictures of parking lots and street corners with absolutely no connection to me. "Ma'am, none of this evidence supports your claims," Captain Hayes said gently. "These appear to be routine emails and calls that you've misinterpreted." "She's covering it up," Dorothy insisted, her voice rising to a shriek. "They're all protecting her because she's about to be a police officer. They're part of it." That's when Dr. Wright, who'd been attending the ceremony, approached our group. She immediately recognized the signs of a severe psychological crisis. "Mrs. Chen, I'm Dr. Wright from the Police Academy. Can we talk somewhere quiet about your concerns?" I don't need a therapist. Dorothy snapped. I need these officers to do their jobs and arrest my daughter for stalking. The situation was spiraling into complete chaos. My classmates were trying to continue the ceremony, but everyone's attention was fixed on Dorothy's meltdown. Marcus had moved closer to offer support, and Kennedy's parents looked concerned and confused about this bizarre interruption to what should have been a celebration. Then Chief Anderson made a decision that would change everything. Instead of simply having Dorothy removed from the ceremony, Chief Anderson asked Captain Hayes to conduct a thorough investigation of her claims right there. If there are allegations of harassment involving one of our new officers, he announced to the hushed gathering, we need to take them seriously and investigate them properly. Captain Hayes spent the next hour examining all of Dorothy's evidence while the graduation ceremony was postponed. She interviewed me, reviewed every paper Dorothy had brought, and made several phone calls to verify information. What Captain Hayes discovered was both disturbing and illuminating. Dorothy had been conducting an elaborate surveillance operation against me, despite the fact that we'd had zero contact for over 2 years. She'd hired a private investigator to follow me, photographed my apartment building and the coffee shop where I worked part-time, and created detailed logs of my daily activities. She'd been calling the academy regularly under different fake names, trying to extract information about my progress and performance. Most disturbing of all, Dorothy had been filing false police reports in multiple jurisdictions across Los Angeles, claiming I was harassing her, threatening her, and violating restraining orders that didn't even exist. Mrs. Chen, Captain Hayes said after completing her investigation, I need to inform you that filing false police reports is a serious crime. The evidence you've presented doesn't support your claims of harassment. In fact, it suggests that you've been engaging in surveillance and harassment of your daughter. That's impossible. Dorothy protested, her face flushing red. I'm the victim here. Can't you see? Ma'am, you filed 17 false police reports in the past 2 years, Captain Hayes continued, her voice steady but firm. You've paid a private investigator to stalk your daughter. You've made multiple false statements to law enforcement agencies across the city. The investigation revealed that Dorothy had spent thousands of dollars and countless hours creating an elaborate fantasy world in which I was the aggressor and she was the victim. She documented every piece of spam email and robocall as evidence of my supposed harassment campaign. She'd even created fake email accounts and sent herself threatening messages, then claimed they came from me. The IP addresses and digital forensics clearly showed that all the threatening communications had originated from her own computer and phone. Captain Hayes arrested Dorothy at my graduation ceremony on charges of filing false police reports, making false statements to law enforcement, and criminal harassment. As she was being led away in handcuffs, Dorothy continued screaming that I was the real criminal and that everyone was conspiring against her. This isn't over, Aria, she shouted as the officers escorted her from the auditorium. I'll prove you're dangerous. I'll make sure everyone knows what you really are. They'll see. They'll all see. The graduation ceremony resumed after Dorothy was removed. But the damage to what should have been a celebration was irreparable. Instead of focusing on our achievements, everyone was whispering about the bizarre confrontation and Dorothy's arrest. Chief Anderson addressed the situation during his closing remarks, trying to salvage what was left of the ceremony. Today, we've witnessed firsthand the importance of thorough investigation and evidence-based law enforcement, he said. But I barely heard his words. I was numb, mortified, and heartbroken all at once. The public nature of Dorothy's accusations had lasting consequences for my career. Even though the investigation had cleared me completely, some people in the department wondered if there might be some truth buried in her claims. These kinds of situations can follow you, warned Lieutenant Angela Morrison, my new supervisor at the district station. Even when you're completely innocent, false accusations can damage your reputation and credibility in law enforcement. You'll need to work twice as hard to prove yourself. The criminal case against Dorothy revealed the full extent of her obsession with controlling my life. During the trial 6 months later, prosecutors presented evidence of her 2-year surveillance campaign, her false reports to multiple police departments, and her systematic attempts to sabotage my career. The private investigator she'd hired, a man named Gregory Palmer, testified about the extensive surveillance operation Dorothy had commissioned. She wanted daily reports on her daughter's activities, Palmer testified, looking uncomfortable. She asked me to photograph everyone her daughter interacted with and to document her schedule down to the minute. When I told her this seemed excessive and potentially illegal for what she claimed were safety concerns, she fired me and found someone else willing to do it. Dr. Catherine Lopez, a forensic psychologist who'd evaluated Dorothy, testified about her obsessive need to control me and her complete inability to accept my independence as an adult. Mrs. Chun exhibits signs of severe anxiety disorder, obsessive-compulsive tendencies, and possible delusional disorder, Dr. Lopez explained to the jury. She's created an elaborate fantasy in which her daughter is dangerous and threatening, when in reality her daughter has had absolutely no contact with her for over 2 years. She cannot accept that her daughter has established boundaries and is living independently. The evidence against Dorothy was overwhelming. Text messages to friends describing surveillance missions, bank statements showing payments to multiple private investigators, recorded phone calls to police departments making false reports, screenshots of the fake email accounts she created to send herself threats. She was convicted on all charges and sentenced to 3 years in prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation with mandatory mental health treatment. Judge Robert Kingston was particularly harsh in his sentencing remarks. Mrs. Chun, you've wasted significant law enforcement resources with your false reports and baseless accusations, he said, looking at her sternly over his glasses. You've attempted to destroy your daughter's career and reputation through systematic lies and manipulation. Your behavior represents a serious abuse of the legal system and a betrayal of the trust society places in citizens to report crimes honestly. But Dorothy's conviction was only the beginning of the consequences she faced. Her employer, the Department of Children and Family Services, where she worked as a case manager, placed her on immediate administrative leave when her criminal charges became public. After her conviction, she was terminated and her professional license was permanently revoked. We cannot have someone with a criminal conviction for filing false police reports working in a position of public trust with vulnerable families, her supervisor, Janet Collins, explained in the termination letter that became part of the public record. Dorothy's obsession with me had also destroyed her personal relationships. Her sister, my Aunt Veronica Davis, cut off contact after learning about the surveillance and false reports. I supported Dorothy when she said you were being difficult and ungrateful, Aunt Veronica told me during the trial, tears streaming down her face. But this level of stalking and lying is completely unacceptable. She needs serious psychiatric help, and I can't enable this behavior anymore. Dorothy's few remaining friends were horrified when they learned about her criminal behavior. The yoga class she'd attended for years asked her to stop coming. Her neighbors began avoiding her after the story made the local news with the headline, "LA woman arrested at daughter's police graduation after filing years of false reports." Meanwhile, my career in law enforcement flourished despite the rocky start. The department's support during Dorothy's false accusations had actually strengthened my reputation rather than damaging it. You handled an impossible situation with grace and professionalism, Chief Anderson told me during my first performance review. That speaks volumes about your character and your potential as an officer. You have a bright future here. I was assigned to a community policing unit in Santa Monica, where I worked with families dealing with domestic disputes and mental health crises. My experience with Dorothy had given me unique insight into how psychological problems can escalate into criminal behavior if left untreated. Kennedy and I became partners, and our friendship deepened as we navigated the challenges of our first year as police officers. Marcus and I got engaged 8 months after graduation, and Kennedy's family continued to treat me like the daughter they'd always wanted. 2 years after my graduation, I received a letter from Dorothy in prison. She'd apparently undergone court-ordered therapy and claimed to understand the harm she'd caused. I realize now that my behavior was wrong and harmful, she wrote in careful, measured handwriting. I was so terrified of losing you that I created problems that didn't exist. I want to make amends and rebuild our relationship when I'm released. I'm getting help, Aria. Real help. Please give me a chance. I showed the letter to Dr. Wright, who'd continued to provide counseling for my family trauma issues. What do you want to do? She asked carefully. Nothing, I replied without hesitation. Some relationships are too toxic to salvage, even with therapy and good intentions. She had 3 decades to change. She chose not to. I never responded to Dorothy's letter or the dozens of others she sent over the following years. Her attempts at reconciliation felt more like manipulation than genuine remorse, the same pattern she'd always used, just dressed up in therapeutic language. Dorothy was released after serving her full sentence. She moved to Arizona and found work as a cashier at a drugstore. Her professional career was over, and her criminal record made it difficult to find decent housing or employment. I heard occasional updates about her situation from Aunt Veronica, who maintained minimal contact out of family obligation. Dorothy was living alone in a small studio apartment in Phoenix, struggling financially and still apparently obsessed with the idea that our estrangement was somehow my fault rather than the result of her own actions. "She asks about you constantly," Veronica told me during one phone call. "She still thinks you're the one who needs to apologize." 5 years after my graduation, everything changed again. I was promoted to detective and married Marcus in a small ceremony surrounded by chosen family rather than blood relatives. Kennedy was my maid of honor, and her parents walked me down the aisle. It was the family celebration Dorothy had always prevented me from having, filled with genuine love and support instead of criticism and control. Last year, I received notification that Dorothy had died in a car accident. She'd been driving alone on a desert highway in Arizona when she apparently lost control and hit a guardrail. She was 65 years old. I felt sadness, but not grief, when I heard the news. Dorothy had chosen to spend her final years consumed by bitterness and regret rather than accepting responsibility for the damage she'd caused and genuinely moving forward with her life. At her funeral, which I attended out of obligation rather than affection, only a handful of people were present. The minister, who barely knew her, gave a generic eulogy about forgiveness and redemption that felt hollow given Dorothy's refusal to truly change. Aunt Veronica approached me afterward with tears streaming down her face. "I wish things could have been different," she said, embracing me. "They could have been," I replied honestly. "But that would have required Dorothy to actually change, and she never wanted to change. She wanted everyone else to accommodate her problems instead." Today, I'm a successful detective with the Los Angeles Police Department, specializing in cases involving family violence and mental health crises. I have a loving marriage with Marcus, who supports my career completely. I have deep friendships with people who've chosen to be part of my life: Kennedy, her family, my colleagues at the department. The family I've created is built on respect, mutual support, and healthy boundaries rather than obligation, guilt, and manipulation. I've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from toxic relationships, even when society tells you that family should always come first. I think about Dorothy sometimes, not with anger anymore, but with a kind of sad understanding. She was deeply mentally ill and refused to get help. She chose control over connection, fear over trust, manipulation over love. And in the end, that destroyed her life far more effectively than any external force ever could. My graduation day, which should have been purely triumphant, became something more complex, a public demonstration of the boundaries I'd fought so hard to establish. In a strange way, Dorothy's arrest that day proved to everyone that I'd been telling the truth about her behavior all along. The story still comes up occasionally at the department. New recruits hear about the graduation arrest and ask if it's true. I tell them yes, it happened. And then I use it as a teaching moment about mental health crises and the importance of evidence-based investigation. If your own mother crashed your most important professional milestone to have you falsely arrested, and then spent years stalking you and filing false police reports, could you ever forgive that level of betrayal and manipulation? I couldn't. And I've made peace with that choice. Some bridges are meant to be burned, and some family ties are meant to be severed for your own survival.